clear for the audience. What kind of family did you grow up in? What is your ethnic background?
So I'm Puerto Rican,
Yep.
and both my parents Puerto Rican, and
Yep.
my parents were both born in New York,
Okay.
but their parents were from Puerto Rico. And when I was telling you last time when we had this conversation, my grandmother, my mom's mom,
Yeah.
she was actually only 12 years old, I was told, when she actually got married off to my grandfather, who was 21.
Yeah.
And even then in Puerto Rico, her parents had to sign documents for her to get married, even back then, because she was so young. And so she had these kids, and then she moved to New York with her husband. And my grandfather ended up just owning a bunch of bars with his brothers. So I was told. And of course, typical male, typical guy, he's owning a bar, he's getting high. This is cocaine, acid, all these other things are coming out. And of course, he's cheating on her so she could continue. I think she had 6 kids. And yeah, she went through a lot of mental distress, mental problems because of my grandfather. And yeah, my mom had to pretty much raise herself at like 14 years old, 13, 14. Her and her younger sister in East New York.
Yeah.
And my dad, um my dad's mom, her name was also Maria. They were both Maria. She my grandfather also wasn't the best. Um, he abused her a lot, and she had, I think, 9 kids. Yeah, 9 kids, and yeah. So, from what my dad told me, and I don't know how true it is, but he said my grandfather was so abusive that he actually kicked out all of his daughters at the age of 15. He was like, okay, you're a woman, get the fuck out of my house. And
So
he
all
kicked
your
them out.
dad's sisters were kicked out.
Yes, they were all kicked out. I don't know how true that is. That's what I was told. And so because of that, you know, he had a tough life too. He was in and out of gangs. He was up and down the street. I mean, my dad told me a story how one time he was 6 years old and he took the train to Betsy Head Pool.
To
Um,
where?
Betsy Head Pool. I think he might have lived in Bushwick, and he took the train to go to Betsy Head Pool, which is in I want to say Red Hook.
Uh-huh.
And he's 6 years old, and he didn't come home till like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And so when he did, his mom beat his ass. But I'm like, where, who's watching this child? I'm like, nobody's watching these kids. So they're just procreating and nobody's giving them guidance.
You know what's crazy? Like you and I, we always have these discussions talking about the old days and how
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have a nostalgia for almost we weren't particularly, or I wasn't at least. I mean, the way that you grew up was different than the way that I grew up, but
Yeah.
um, it's not that I grew up as a what they call like free range child, like where the kids are allowed to go out, whatever. But I remember, like just being like growing up in the neighborhood, being able to go outside, ride bikes to other parts of the neighborhood with friends and not having cell phones on us. Parents didn't really know exactly where we were, but there was just the kind of trust of going out. So you and I, we reminisce about that. We have that nostalgia, but at the same time, like when we think about the generations before us, and especially when I'm thinking about your grandmother who was married off at the age of 12, it comes down to like a lot of economics too,
Yeah.
and just the ability for the parent to take care of the child. So
Yep.
um, it's really crazy. I don't know what to say beyond that. I mean, it's just fascinating to me that that's how
Yeah,
the
it
world
is.
once was.
Yeah, it is. And it's like there's so many issues that I used to think back and be like, oh my God, why did this happen, or why did that happen, or why my mom or my dad could have done this or could have done that. And then I have to go back and I have to think, well, really look at their upbringing. Like
Yeah.
their parents had no guidance. You know, who was going to guide them? You know, and really at that point, it's like survival of the fittest. It really is Darwin's theory, because it's like you have to self-love. You have to learn how to, I had to learn how to build myself up, because obviously my parents didn't know how. They tried their best. I would never take that from them. They tried their best, and it made me who the person I am, you know? So, so yeah, but
And
you know,
even thinking about your dad, it's like, I mean, honestly, I have heard of New York City kids nowadays kind of riding the subway on their own, but it's only
at
after the
6,
parents are, they're like, all right, this is how you do it. This is how you get on. This is your stop. This is where you get off. And, you know, it's a
that's at like
little bit of
10.
that. Yeah. But like 6 years old to, all right, I'm getting on the
Yeah.
train. I'm going, going to the pool and
All
not back till
day.
11:30.
Yeah, no, he got his ass whooped. He said she beat me, and I'm thinking to myself, well, who is watching you? You're 6. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. Can't imagine.
So I don't want to draw too many parallels to your grandmother, uh,
Okay.
but I do want to talk about this situation of her being married off at 12 years old,
Hmm.
um, just because it's pertinent like this. And here's where we're going to transition to a little bit of what's going on in the news, right?
Hmm.
So your grandmother, because of her economic situation, her parents were like, okay, well, we're going to marry her off, and the best option for them economically to deal with the child is to have that child be taken into the care of someone else, even if it's an older man when she's 12 years old. As fucked up as that sounds, you know,
Hmm.
there can be a sort of economic situation if you're thinking Puerto Rico, and then I don't know, I really don't know the history of Puerto Rico in the 1950s economically or whatever, but I'm just
Yeah.
imagining, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen in film as well. You know, there's a recent Lebanese movie, and I think I told you about it. It's called Capernaum, and the parents in the slums of Beirut, they do the same thing. They take their 11, 12-year-old daughter. The family doesn't have a good economic situation, and they decide, okay, the best thing for us to do is to marry her off.
Yeah.
So they do that. I'm thinking now more in the sense of what's happening or what we're uncovering with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And this kind of like marrying children off. In a way, it's almost like a form of child trafficking. And when we
It
hear the
is.
term child trafficking, right, we always think,
Hmm.
oh, it's some kind of like thing. We're gonna kidnap children and we're gonna like, pull them in some, dark enclosed space and then
Hmm.
like put them on a truck and ship them or whatever. But
Horrible.
it doesn't work like that. It turns out to be like people who are economically disadvantaged being taken advantage of because of their situation. Um,
Absolutely.
and it makes me think very much about like the Epstein case. What are your thoughts on Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell? I know that I know that you and I have joked. You've told me before. You've always wanted to be a madam. I'm sure not for a child sex ring.
Absolutely not. You know
Yeah,
what? My fantasy job is, of course, it's never going to happen. But it's just to be a madam and just to prostitute men to other
yeah.
women.
Hey, take the power and do what you want with it. So,
Yes.
but what is your take on this huge news story that this potentially huge news story? We really don't know much.
Well, the truth of the matter is that it's not new. It's been going on for years. He's not the first. He won't be the last. Um, uh, I, I'm just, it just saddens me that, people have to, little girls, because a lot of these girls that he was taking advantage of were were, were sexually abused before. They were from the slums. They were pretty from pretty fucked up situations themselves. And what he did, he asked the girls that did not want to participate in the sex, like, no, wait, no. They asked him, hey, go out and get me 2 friends. I'll pay you $200 if I refriend. So like, and they don't know, didn't know any better. So it's just really sad. And the thing that really annoys me so much is that, like one of the ladies said, she says, here we are, we're victims, we're children, and we were being called prostitutes. We're being called this and we're being called that. And we're the ones who are getting harassed by the same government who is supposed to protect us. And that's what aggravates me so much. That really, really, really is a horrible thing to do to any child.
They said that they were being called prostitutes when? By Jeffrey Epstein or
By the media and the government and the lawyers.
like now what's happening?
Yeah, so I was just watching the documentary and one of the girls was saying, you know, here we are, we were molested, we were raped, and then we go to court and everybody's saying, you know, they're calling us, you know, prostitutes, paid prostitutes, they're escorts, and this is the same government that's supposed to be protecting us, and they're giving him a slap on the wrist and saying, hey, this is all you're getting. Sorry.
You know, even just the language in that. I mean, the term prostitute connotes some kind of agency into, like, all right, you know, in Nevada, prostitution is legal, and I'm all for the legalization of sex work.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as, you know, adults are consenting and, you know, people have boundaries respected and everything. But prostitution, I don't want to say it connotes some kind of agency, but at least in some type of sex work where a woman is a prostitute, she can decide that that's what she wants to do for a living, you know, but
exactly.
And the difference I think here is that there's not a lot, even if it turns out like, okay, I'm going to willfully go with you, but what is the better option for them? Like live somewhere where it's difficult, where their lives are in danger, versus where they're, you know, housing is going to be paid, food will be taken care of, and then they're just forced into some kind of what is more or less sex slavery.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a difference.
Because it's like, is it really sex slavery? If all these things are being done, I should be grateful for everything that's going on, because, you know, when I go home, I may not have a meal. I may be subject to my own abuse from my own parent. And some of them didn't even have that. One of the girls, she was a cheerleader. She had a great, you know, childhood, she was starting high school. She was a cheerleader. And this happened. You know, he was just a real predator. He wanted to take advantage of children, of girls, little girls. He didn't care.
This was on the documentary that you watched?
Yeah, on Netflix. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I didn't watch it. What is the documentary?
It's called, I have it here.
All right,
it's called Jeffrey Epstein.
What's it called?
It's called Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. There's like 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
You know, I have to thanks for tuning into another clip of Johnny's Jabs. If you liked what you just saw, please be sure to share this with your family and friends and comment below. And if you want to get more content like this, it's easy. Just click the bell below to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Johnny Jabor. I'll catch you guys later.